This is one of my garage ornaments, a 1986 Nissan 300ZX that I've actually owned with my brother for about 10 years now. Unfortunately, it developed a couple of issues from sitting. So we're gonna be going over what issues the car developed, how I diagnosed them, and what it's gonna take to fix them. These 300ZXs can be very reliable if maintained. Since sitting for almost 3 years, this 300ZX is a little past its prime and not what I really remember it used to be. It's dirty from sitting under a car cover for a long time, the interior had gotten mold in it at one point, and there's an awful exhaust leak from the crossover pipe. And there's a main reason why it was parked in the first place, which is a nagging issue of low power. With only 165 horsepower, these Z's aren't really known for knocking you back in your seat with their strength and power. However, we've owned this car long enough to know that there is a problem. We did make an attempt of fixing it by just throwing some parts at it, and we tossed in a new fuel pump, which shows similar symptoms. This also allowed us to look inside the fuel tank and verify that everything was clean, so it wasn't really the worst idea, but that did not fix the issue and we were pretty bummed. So it's that again for almost a year until now. This time I've come equipped with a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more time, and most importantly, a little bit more money to get this Z ready for cruising in the summer with the T-tops off. And I'm going to get this done. At this point, I have a sneaking suspicion that one of the injectors is dead. Here the idle controls are missing, so we'll test the easiest one to get to. I'm going to first zero out these test leads so that I know I have a good baseline, because I don't want to be thrown off by bad test leads. This injector resistance tested within spec, so I'm just going to go down the line until one fails. Now that one failed, we can just stop here since we know that we have to pull the plenum off no matter what. These VG series of engines from Nissan are found all over their lineup from the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s. They are neither particularly difficult to work on nor complicated, just a little annoying. There are a ton of vacuum and coolant lines crisscrossing all over the plenum, along with the EFI harness casting a net across the top. Even though this is not my first time doing this, I still had to take some reference photos. Careful not to drop anything down the intake. If I was smart, I would actually put something in there, but I trust myself. Let's see if I should. And it's gone. All right, well, bad news. The bolt actually dropped way down there. Didn't hear it hit the ground. My disappointment is immeasurable right now. For all these pieces of hardware, there's going to be the bolt, washer, spacer, and a plastic spacer. They are important. I was so depressed about dropping that bolt down the back side of the timing cover that I didn't even bother filming the recovery of it, since I thought there was no chance I could get it out. I actually went to 3 different hardware stores as well to get every single version of a magnet on a stick that I could find, and with those, I was able to fish it out. Alright, I managed to fish out the fuel rail, and you see it here. This can very easily bend, and you want to be careful not to bend the rail. You're going to end up with a ton of vacuum leaks if you end up bending it, and we're going to be definitely saving the fuel pressure regulator, all the mounting hardware, and plastic bits that you see. We're going to replace all these rubber lines. I have 6 rebuilt injectors. We'll see if they work. We'll put all this stuff back together with new parts, and we'll see how it goes. Another thing to note is that these aren't traditional clamps here. You can see they are these metal tabs. They're almost like a pressure fit. These are going to be a total pain to undo, so you're better off just cutting these lines and wrangling them out. But there is a bunch of snap ring pliers here holding down these rubber seals, these insulators, so take these off so we can actually take these brackets off. Crusty old seals. We got new ones. That's why you want to hold on to them. This is what the new injectors look like. I don't really see anywhere to fit one of these snap rings, so We'll see. I don't know. One thing you want to do when you buy parts off eBay or even anywhere is trust but verify, right? These are supposed to be spec'd out for the 86 model year. The factory service manual specifies about 3 ohms resistance to actually work with that ECU. So you can see on the originals here, we get just under 3, so within spec. However, unfortunately, the new ones that were supplied that I got off of eBay, yeah, are about 11. And these are the incorrect type for this application. So yeah, so these are going to be sent back. I'm going to get a refund and try to find somewhere else to get these injectors replaced. Well, here we are a couple weeks later, and as you can see, I no longer have 6 injectors, I just have 1. In the idea of budget friendly, I've gone on eBay, and this guy right here is a Beck Arnley rebuilt injector that has the correct part number for the 300ZX. This guy should work. I'm just gonna gamble it to see if any of the other ones fail. It was only 20 bucks. Certainly a lot better than paying $300-400+ for 6 rebuilt units. And hopefully we can see if we get away with it. Because I took all of the seals off, then we're gonna have to put new ones on. Have new spark plugs because they're easy to reach and easy to get to. I have no idea when these were last done, so might as well. And they're cheap, right? So cheap insurance. With the idea of while I'm in there, I have some valve cover gaskets here. Did notice that there were some oil leaks with the valve cover gaskets. This is a upper intake manifold gasket. This thing needs a timing belt anyways, so I went ahead and bought a new Gates timing belt kit with a ASIN water pump. This pump is actually made in Japan. It's high quality. It's the best one you can find. It's also pretty cool. It says Fair Lady Z on it. And Vibrant Performance clamps. They're not going to cheap out on clamps that can set your car on fire. And these are just cam seals and timing cover gasket for when you do the timing belt. Hopefully that should be it. Well, just like the last set of injectors, we need to actually verify that this is the correct ohm, if it's low or high impedance. So we're going to do that real quick. 2.6, which is the exact same that the original ones are at. Okay, I situated this how it would be on a car, and this one should be it. Yep. All right, now for removal, the factory service manual actually does say that you can use a soldering iron with a hot blade to cut this at the top. I don't have that, so I have a razor blade, which is the next best thing. So I'm gonna cut it from the top here, go down, and hopefully not cut myself. 37.5 millimeters, and kind of ugly, but it'll work. And these are the old seals, what they looked like. The little packs came with 3, which is a little bit strange. Don't know what this one is for, but this one is obviously for the bottom. And then this one is for the top. Now, if you recall, when we took it apart, there was also a snap ring. However, with this seal on, I don't see any room for a snap ring. I don't see any gap there, so we'll see. Actually, I didn't put this on in the wrong order, so. These actually go first on the injector, and as you can see, they're a little crusty. So I'm gonna take some time to clean these up before putting them on. All right, after some time with some wire brushes, looks a little bit better on the inside. Something that looks like it'll actually seal. Next, I just have some basic petroleum jelly, and I'm going to use that to lube up the O-rings. Don't need a lot. I'm just gonna put it just a little bit on the inside here. And this goes on first. Just a little bit to make it easier and to help the seal. Easy. Now I'll just do the rest of them. All new seals for everything, for all 6 injectors. All right, now that I've got the injectors here with the new O-rings, new one replaced, I've also gone ahead and replaced these 2 little lines up here, put new hardware on it. I can actually start to install this. But I still have one more thing to do, and that's take out the old O-rings here that are stuck in that lower intake manifold. So I'll take those out, and then we'll plop this thing down in. And of course, now that I'm thinking about it, I can totally do the spark plugs here before I put the injectors in. So just gonna do that now. Oh, geez. All right, and this is a 5/8 socket, just a normal one, not a specialty spark plug socket, but it is deep, so maybe. Normally this one's the hardest to get, but doing it like this is super easy. Well, here we can see the 6 old spark plugs, new one for comparison, and there really isn't too much wrong with the actual electrodes themselves. Now, they are just super disgusting looking. I am not too big into reading spark plugs. This is kind of like tea leaves for some people. You know, you can just look at a chart online and see if there's major things going on, but some people like swear by it. Yeah, these just look normal. So nothing too crazy. One thing you can do to make installation easier is I just have like a bulk roll of non-EFI hose here. You can just cut off a piece and then you can just easily, for installation, put your spark plug in there and you can drop it in. Super easy, and it's gonna make installation a breeze. Also a lot easier when the intake manifold is actually on. This is a lifesaver. All right, I'm just getting these started. So here I have my torque wrench. There's a really fancy chart that NGK has on their website based off the type of material your cylinder head is and the thread diameter, what your appropriate torque is. This one ends up being about 18 foot-pounds. So this torque wrench actually measures in inch-pounds. So we're gonna do about 216 inch-pounds for it, and then we'll be all good to go. Yes, I know that on the box it gives directions on how to install without a torque wrench, but it is so much easier to just hear or feel the click. All right, now we can install the injectors. All the O-rings are looped up nicely. Installation can be a little bit finicky. Since everything is connected, a small change in one corner is a big change on the opposite side. It was easier to loosen all the clamps, get one side in first, loosely install the hardware, and then switch to the other side. After that, you're then able to tighten and clamp everything down. As you can see, this side is mostly oriented correctly, so I will put these retainers down loosely, and then I'll start messing around with the other side. Installing these little plastic spacers really reminds me of playing Operation. Careful not to drop these anywhere too difficult to reach because these are plastic and obviously won't stick to magnets. And unlike Operation, you can't just flip the car over and shake out the pieces. Alright, well, these bolts here, they just need to be snugged down. They have a torque that is very, very light. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is in the spot that it needs to be. So it looks good from here. And the torque spec is like 3 pound-feet or 2.5 or something. Stupid low. It's just snug them down. And that should be it. All right. The fuel pressure regulator was bolted down, and now we can actually start tightening up these clamps. Well, since I have these valve cover gaskets, I'm going to actually take these off. Ooh, this side's going to be a little bit more annoying. A little bit more stuff in the way. See what we can just get immediately. There's one hidden behind here. Yep. Of course there's one hidden behind the AC compressor. Get these, bolt up here, and then there's one on either side on the bottom. You can loosen those and then you can actually move this around a little bit. As you can see, it's already out. Then Nissan was actually kind enough to actually provide a little hole for you to stick your screwdriver into here. That's the last one. So after that, it's easy. Just undo it. All right, easy. All right, finally got the valve covers on the table, and in this box, I got some fancy stuff in here. Been collecting parts for a little bit. This is from Z-Spec Design, bought this myself a while ago. And in here, fancy pieces of hardware. So we got some new valve cover hardware we're gonna use to go along with the new gaskets. And along with this, we're gonna throw some paint down. This is a paint I'm gonna use. Don't know if it's gonna be good or not. It does say that it is temperature resistant up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is good, so we can handle the engine bay. And it says that it's perfect for car parts, for automotive parts. This one does apparently have some sparkle, so we'll see how fancy it comes out. Well, and just like that, we now have shiny and fresh, new looking valve covers. The silver actually came out pretty good, I feel like. Obviously there's some spots where it was kind of disgusting, kind of hard to clean it up, but it's pretty shiny and definitely better than what it looked like before. Still have to remove the crossover pipe, so in the interest of not scratching fresh paint, they will go on later. Not a whole lot is said in the service manual about removing this crossover pipe, but you know it's going to be tough when it says just remove the engine if you're going to be removing the cylinder heads. They do, however, provide you a neat photo on where the hardware is, and then it's all up to you to figure out how to get them out. Well, after a lot of bloody knuckles, I'm finally able to take this out. Trying to reach all the hardware back here is really difficult. You can see it's been leaking for a little bit. This is a setup that I use to reach the hardware all the way in the back for that exhaust shield. It is one of these 6-point Milwaukee sockets that has flats on it, and with this wrench I was able to get enough leverage on it. Now all what's left is just to try and reach where the little arrow is pointing that says bolt. All right, gonna try and make a little bit more space, blasting out this heat shield. Don't know what that was. Disgusting. This side is a lot more crowded and took many attempts with different sockets and extensions to finally reach that bolt. All right, the secret was I actually went out and got a 3/8 breaker bar. So it should be cracked loose. And let me actually see if I can get the ratchet on now. There was a ton of corrosion holding this side on, and I had to break out the air hammer. A moment of silence for all of the gloves that perished fighting to remove the crossover pipe. Alright, here is the old one, and you can obviously see here with all the carbon buildup that this flex joint was leaking. And here is the new one that we're going to go put in. This one is from Pucker Factory Fab. No one else makes the crossover tubes, otherwise you have to make it yourself. And for me, that does not have access to TIG welder and all these materials, this is definitely the way to go for me. And along with that, I have new gaskets because obviously this one is trashed from having to air hammer it out. Of course, I'm going to clean up the surfaces as well. The new crossover pipe is mocked up and looks really good, and it also fit very well. I'm going to just reuse the original Nissan hardware as there is nothing wrong with it, and it's still high quality. And before we tighten everything together, we still need to reinstall the passenger side exhaust manifold. Looks pretty bad. We gotta clean them up on here. This EGR tube is going to get cut off along with taking the impact to this. I managed to not press record, but this little Makita really worked hard to get this nut off. As we can see, two of these mating surfaces came out really nice, however the last one is a bit rough. To do this right, you would just send this out to a machine shop so that they could true up the surfaces, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'll be experimenting for all of you at home how this Permatex copper gasket maker is going to work, and not because I'm too lazy to do it the right way. To really give this a chance to work, I'm going to also clean up the surfaces on the engine side, And because I'll be doing this blind, I'm going to try really hard to not cut myself. Reinstalling the passenger side exhaust manifold is pretty straightforward. I'm going to be using this ARP stud kit since this is something I did not want to cheap out on. Eventually the other side will be done, but that's a future me problem. The part number is actually meant for an LS1, but this is also the correct thread pitch and length for the VG30. And that part number is going to be in the description below. One thing to make sure is to also use anti-seize on the threads. This is in the directions, but I was going to do this anyways. And this will stop any corrosion and help make any future removal a lot easier. With all the hardware in, next goes the gasket and manifold, making sure not to forget the gasket for the crossover pipe because I did do that and had to refilm. Because I used the exhaust sealant for that one rough surface, the directions were to assemble the components while wet on only one side of the gasket, wait 24 hours secure, and then finally torque everything down. And just like that, the valve covers are on. No idea if the car runs yet, but damn is it starting to look good. Because it is the next day, we're gonna actually torque down the exhaust on that side, and then we can start dealing with this wiring harness. Yeah, we'll just clean it up a little bit so that everything starts to look good. Then we can start slapping some more parts on. All right, I got my torque wrench out. I think the spec on these is about 20 foot-pounds. This is in inch-pounds, 240 inch-pounds. You can see two of the new studs there peeking out, looking pretty good. Here is where the EGR tube went. I'm going to order a plug for this. You can always just weld it up. I do have a welder, but that's kind of a lot of effort. So while everything is still out of the way, I'm going to clean up this wiring loom. There are sections where the plastic sheathing has broken off and is missing, and it really just looks ugly. I'm going to be using something called Tessa tape. It comes in a bunch of different varieties, and I bought this pack from Painless Wiring, but you don't have to get it from them. There are two types in this pack. One is a more textile based, which is good for abrasion resistance and for maybe interior parts. And the other is a harder vinyl that is more temperature resistant and better seals from the element. I'm also going to be using some simple poly sheathing. It comes in different sizes and works well for abrasion. I've used all of these on my 280Z wiring harness and have so far had pretty good luck with it. Doing this to a disintegrating wiring harness just requires patience. There are no shortcuts in making it look good and be effective at the same time. I am wrapping in one direction with the cloth-based tape first, and then going back over it with the vinyl in the opposite direction. I don't know if it matters, but it brings some balance to me. All right, I think that looks a lot better than previous. Well, I've got one final topping to really finish this off, and that's the plenum. I have a new gasket to go with it. And here we go. Here's the plenum. And I'm not gonna make you guys struggle watching me struggle. So we'll just, yeah, and that's it. Reinstalling the plenum is quite simply just a reverse a disassembly. Hardest part is remembering where all the vacuum lines and coolant lines go. It's not hard as long as you take pictures and take your time. These bolts are being torqued down to about 15 foot-pounds. All right, that should be just about everything buttoned up, and I will find out when I try and start it if I forgot anything. And smoke test. Oh. All right, and I'll tighten up these terminals. With the key in and ignition on, the fuel pump is priming and pressurizing the system. Now is a good time to check for any leaks before actually starting or driving. Well, looking around, I'm trying to find something, and yeah, that's it. That's what I forgot. All right, I just ordered this plug for the EGR and it just came off Amazon. It's the correct thread pitch and size, diameter and all that. So we're just gonna put this in really quick. And those threads are a little damaged, so it might be a little bit interesting trying to get this in. All right, let's try this again. And man, that sounds a lot better. Well, here we go. For the first time in a long time, we can actually keep the hood closed. Had a lot of wins this episode, which are got the new exhaust, studs, the new injector, some gaskets replaced, and had the engine bay a little bit spruced up with the fancy valve covers and some additional new hardware. So for part 2, still have more plans on it, on actually making this a good drivable car, which is my end goal. I want to actually be able to drive this without worrying about having to call AAA. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If there's anything that you have questions on, make sure to drop that question down below. My brother and I read all the comments. If you like the video, dislike the video, anything that we could do better, leave any suggestions down there as well. Make sure to subscribe for part 2 of this car. We're going to be really trying to make sure that this gets on the road to actually have the T-tops down. And we have a ton of other content we have lined up to come out. Please subscribe so that you don't miss any new episodes.